Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Steven Wilson LP, The Raven Who Refused to Sing. Steven Wilson is a modern progressive rock figurehead, multi-instrumentalist, producer, singer-songwriter, frontman of the infamous Porcupine Tree, and over the years responsible for penning some of what people consider to be modern progressive rock classics, mostly in the late to mid 90s and early 2000s. And I personally know a lot of people who hold Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson in very high regard, very high artistic regard, which is why I've always found it to kind of be a personal tragedy of mine that I've never really enjoyed his music, no matter how much I listen to it, no matter how much I revisit it. And the thing is, it's not that I don't appreciate the genres that he typically toys with. I love progressive rock. I love jazz rock. I love the sound of a group of very talented, proficient musicians pushing each other's limits performance-wise. That's why I listen to Frank Zappa as well as Soft Machine and Mahavishnu Orchestra, and specifically artists that Mr. Wilson takes a ton of influence from, like Pink Floyd, as well as a little bit of Rush, some Jethro Tull, and King Crimson as well ranks up very high in the league of influences Steven Wilson likes to wear on his sleeve. He takes a ton of cues from these artists. He essentially, with these artists, does his progressive rock homework. He's memorizing, he's cramming, he is mastering the art of regurgitating the musical ideas that these artists perfected over their careers. And taking influence from the artists that move you emotionally as a musician is something that pretty much everybody does to an extent, but doing his homework is really all I personally feel Steven Wilson does, especially on his most recent solo efforts, Grace for Drowning and The Raven Who Refused to Sing. Steven Wilson seems to have made a career out of just being a student of prog, and that's it. None of his music, to me personally, showcases the turbulent tides of real life or personal experience. Pretty much everything Steven Wilson has put out on his most recent stuff, to me, is just a product of studying, just very close study of the art of old school progressive rock. And the music actually suffers because of it. Even though Steven Wilson is really great at creating this music to an extent, it's not like somebody who's actually familiar with this era of music would mistake this new album for an authentically vintage piece of progressive rock. The sounds throughout this LP, in my opinion, are actually really flat and kind of unimaginative. There's not much in the way of interesting production on this LP. The drums sound really flat, really plastic. They don't have a lot of body to them. They feel as if they were recorded on a shoestring budget in a home studio. And other elements in this LP, like the faux mellotron sounds and the very pristine piano chords that sound like they're coming out of a synthesizer. It's kind of like that fake, cringe-worthy kind of piano sound, as well as the very pristine, shimmering guitars. It all just, to me, says knock off, knock off, knock off. Not only do the sounds say that, but compositionally this album says that to me as well. The bass lines, as well as the drum beats and fills, are incredibly textbook on this LP. And the vocals, in my opinion, consistently lack passion. Steven Wilson has never really been one of my favorite rock vocalists, and it's because his voice kind of hangs in this very high range, but isn't particularly emotive or attention-grabbing in terms of inflection or just putting a powerful voice forward. For the most part, it feels like the vocals are there because they should be there according to the progressive rock blueprint that Wilson is working from. Whereas I feel he has the chops to make this an instrumental album if he wanted to, or at least employ a vocalist who is better at singing than he is, which with all of his musical connections I'm sure he could have done. You know, honestly, when it comes to emulating, Steven Wilson has a gift. I'm not surprised he has fans. He's really great at emulating. He can play, he can arrange according to these formulas that he has studied and memorized so well. Audibly, aside from maybe some nitpicking that I have with some of the sounds not being lush enough or being interesting enough, there's nothing technically wrong. There's just a severe lack of adventure and soundcraft on this record that just hangs over every song in a really annoying way. Like the track Watchmaker, which actually was one of my favorite songs on here, a very pretty acoustic ballad, opens this song up, but it just kind of feels like vocals by Greg Lake with lyrics by Peter Sinfeld, with some acoustic guitar arpeggio straight out of the Robert Fripp playbook. And then a flute comes in, which makes the song feel even more formulaic and really takes me out of the sweet, tender moment that Mr. Wilson is trying to make this song become. I like the lyrics on this track quite a bit. Stephen is telling a beautiful story that feels very aged, archaic, kind of romantic, but the years of ice that have kind of built up over my heart when it comes to listening to stuff Stephen Wilson has made because of just the lack of surprises that comes with his music. The syncopated drum hits and the bass riffs on the opening track here right at the start of it, which feels a little like Rush inspired in a way. Maybe the bass is kind of repetitive, not really altering as much as I would have liked it, but at least the song hits a good groove and starts the album off at a modest pace. And the song Drive Home, the way the track starts off with these piano chords, it's very atmospheric, and these guitar solos just come in wailing, soaring over all of this rock instrumentation. It's really kind of Floyd-esque. Then a King Crimson-esque acoustic guitar interlude comes in, smattered with a little bit of horns. It's very beautiful, it's very detailed, but I feel like I'm taken out of the moment right away because this acoustic guitar flies in that feels like it's arriving on a train schedule or something like that. Again, a great idea that I feel has been tested and proven to be great on other records. For me personally, it's hard to enjoy this LP because I feel like I catch Stephen Wilson with his hand in the cookie jar just too many times. I would say the most modern thing about this LP that isn't so distracting with all of these prog rock stereotypes is the title track, which is actually a very pretty piano ballad. I wish the sounds were more interesting like on many other tracks on here, but Stephen Wilson's voice actually sounds pretty great on this song. There's some symphonic instrumentation coming in as the song progresses. It's a nice point on the album that actually moved me in a sense emotionally. And though there are some good ideas on this LP like this, and Stephen Wilson, like I said, is really great at recreating those classic and fantastic prog sounds, there are some moments on here that I don't feel like a prog forefather would have done, or just maybe would have not done as cheesily as Stephen Wilson has, like the do-do-do ascending vocals on the track Watchmaker toward the end of the song. If you're into prog rock and you really just want to hear all of the great albums that you've loved over the years rehashed into a new LP, and just all the pieces you're already familiar with just placed in a different order, in a different succession, then Raven may just entertain you. Unfortunately, I'm not looking for that really. So like I said again, this album left me cold. So I'm pretty much feeling a strong 4 to a light 5 on this thing. Certainly it's not terrible, it's not horrible. Like I said, it's not like this album is offensive to the ears from a technical standpoint, but from a point of emotion and inspiration, there's really not much of anything here for me really. So that's it. If you've given this LP a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? Stephen Wilson, The Raven Who Refused to Sing, Anthony Fantano, Forever.